When you moved from being an assistant for how many years?
Boy, 15, 16?
Yeah. To become the head coach, I know I went 11 years as an assistant, and then I became a head coach, and all that time that I was thinking, I don't know why the head coach is doing this. Then I became the head coach. I was like, ooh.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, now I know why they were thinking. But in terms of the team, building the team, how did your lens change when you became the head coach?
I think the thing that I realized is, as the head coach, you got to be looking on the horizon to figure out what's coming next. I think that's more of a military approach of, the soldiers and the captains. I mean, they're in the trenches, they're working, and you have to sometimes get in the trenches with them. That's important. But it's our job, as the general, to be looking on the horizon to figure out what's coming next, and make sure that they all have the vision to recognize where we're all going. I think that probably that was important for me to learn. Every year you learn more and more.
Sure.
I think the next thing I learned was you got to have the right people in the right spots. You got to have the right people in the right, and you got to. This job isn't for the faint of heart. You got to make hard decisions, and when you care a lot about relationships and you care a lot about people, but you also know what's at stake. And you have to have the courage to make change sometimes when it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think those are probably the things that I've learned the most in my 5 years.
Yeah, the decisions are easy when you're the assistant sitting there saying to yourself, we ought to be doing this. But you're not. But it's funny you bring up that part about the vision and the landscape. And I just finished an article by a guy named Robert Greenleaf. And it's not a new article. And I don't even know who gave it to me. And one of the things that he was talking about was that a real good servant leader who's serving the team, the best interest of the whole, he said certainly has to be a historian, because you have to know
where you are, no question.
And how things, what was the design that got Ohio State to where they are today, and
totally agree.
the good and the bad, and the game, the evolution of offense, defense, training, recovery, diet, you've got to be a good historian. And then he said, you have to be a good contemporary analyst, meaning you need to analyze, everyone's talking about data analytics and AI and all that. Well, that's not new. I mean, we just didn't have computers. We had, handwritten, we used to hang the film on the paper clip, and then splice it together and analyze third down or whatever. But contemporary analyst about what's going on now in the game, in the business, in society, whatever, which made sense to me.
Yes.
I'm a believer in history. I'm a believer in, knowing cutting edge, competence, giving our people the best chance to succeed, whether it's in football or in their job. But the one I'd never really thought too much about was, he said, and the third thing that a great servant leader needs to be is a prophet. And he's the one that has to keep in consideration what we've learned about history, what we've learned about the contemporary analytics, but how's its effect going to be on the future? And, we talk a lot about what's going on in our beloved sport and college athletics, and I think back to some of the history, and I think back to some of what's going on now, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure throughout the course of years we've been good prophets for our game. We've allowed some things that, we might have said, this is a good idea based on history and contemporary analytics, but did we think about, I wonder what the effect is going to be?
Right.
And that's a daunting responsibility for a leader,
it is.
To try to predict the future. But as you're trying to build a team, isn't that what we owe, to all those guys? And so it's pretty cool that you bring up that yes, your scope is much wider when you're the head coach. Like, man, I didn't know I had to think about all this stuff. But your responsibility for making sure the conversations are the right ones, and are we thinking about,
that's it.
And that's, I remember when I first got here to Ohio State, and we were trying to analyze, learn about what had gone on before, and we had great teams. I mean, there's always great teams. In fact, I used to tease people all the time, come on, every coach that's been at Ohio State wins. So, but, you're still trying to analyze history, trying to learn. and trying to, okay, well, here's what's going on in the world, and did we make good decisions? So you're trying to find places, where can we get better?